are in the midst of a big fight right now to get the Sharks back to prominence in the National Hockey League. What does it mean to you to get an opportunity here to be a head coach?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm honored. I'm humble by this opportunity, and grateful. There's a lot of words that come into play, and I think the biggest thing is I'm excited to get to work. And we see the light here at the end of the tunnel with the draft selections coming up and some younger players that we have in the prospect pool. And I'm excited to get this franchise back where it needs to be and to start winning hockey games again.
Now, you've been with the team for a couple of years as David Quinn's assistant. You work with the defense and you work with the penalty killing. How have the last couple of years, as painful as they can be in the win-loss column, be a springboard for you as a coach? How much have you learned?
I learned a lot, and I've got a lot of experience now being behind an NHL bench. David Quinn's a great man. He's a great coach. I learned a lot from him. We had our tough moments, but we learned from those moments, and that's how I took it from going through this process of getting this position. I learned a lot in these last 2 years of not just coaching, of who I am as a coach, who I am as a person, how to battle through some tough times, and then that adversity of where we are as a franchise. And I think that's only going to make me a better coach.
You grew up in a fantastic hockey area in New England, and I wanted the fans to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
You're from Marshfield, Mass., which is the same hometown as Mike Sullivan,
Yeah.
head coach of the Penguins and a former Shark. And if people that don't know, it's on the South Shore. It's between Duxbury and Scituate, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right there.
Tell us about that area and just how much hockey means to that area.
Yeah, it's important, and just the Boston area in general. There's a lot of hockey going on. There's a lot of rinks around, and I grew up in a town with Mike Sullivan, and Tony Monti was down the street, and some really good hockey people and hockey minds that have come out of the South Shore, not just from Marshfield. And you get Charlie Coyle, who's from down there, and some other NHL players that have come out of that area. And I was fortunate to be close with Mike, and he's one of my big mentors, and I've learned a lot from him. Not just through the years, but through this process of now being in the National Hockey League. I've leaned on him quite a bit, and I'm very fortunate to be from there. And my dad always says, "Don't forget where you came from." And Marshfield's a big piece of my makeup.
Well, also your family is too. Your younger brother David played in the National Hockey League for the Pittsburgh Penguins, for a couple of other teams. He also played at Boston University, where he won a national championship. Now your path was a little different. You actually have a lot in common, I think, with Peter Laviolette, who went from Division III as a player to become a head coach in the National Hockey League. What about that sort of tradition?
Yeah, I think my youngest brother David, who was a really good player, and we grew up 2 years apart, and he was a lot better than me, and I could kind of see I knew where I was going, and then I was a good hockey player, but I knew I wasn't going to play in the National Hockey League, and I wanted to take it as far as I could take it. And I always had this little thought in the back of my mind that I want to get into coaching, and obviously you get Mike Sullivan, the connection there. He was starting to get into coaching after his career. I would be around him when he was coaching, starting in Providence and into the Boston Bruins, and I just kind of fell in love with it. I fell in love with the preparation, the communication with the players, the strategies throughout the game, the X's and O's. I'd always be talking about it and studying it, and following other sports and press conferences and whatever it might be. I always had that feeling that I wanted to get into coaching, and it never left. And as much as some people try to talk me out of it because of the business is difficult, and you're moving a lot and whatnot. So, but I always had that inkling that I knew I was going to get into coaching, and just the way my career unfolded playing, I knew this is what I wanted to get into, and I'm excited, and it's been a long journey and a quick journey, but it's been a grind, and I've enjoyed almost every moment I've had, because I've learned a lot through those moments.
You started your college career at Sacred Heart, then you moved on to Curry College, where you actually started your coaching career. You were an assistant coach there, if I'm not mistaken, 1 year. Yeah. But really you started with a team in South Carolina. And it's very interesting to note that the ECHL team in South Carolina has now had 3 coaches that have become head coaches in the NHL. Jared Bednar, Spencer Carberry, and now Ryan Warsofsky. What's your memory from that time, and how much it meant to you?
Yeah, it's where I grew as a coach. It's where I was molded as who I am now. I worked for a great coach in Spencer Carberry for 3 years under him, and I was a sponge. And I'll never forget a little story that I tell everyone, that after my first year there, I asked Spence, I'm like, well, what are your thoughts on how I did? Do I need to get better? And he's like, the one thing that I thought you did really well is you asked a lot of questions. And I think there's a difference between hearing and listening. and I heard the answers, and I took them, and I remember I had a journal, and I would follow, every day, every meeting he had. So I tried to really soak up in that 1 year, especially in my first year there, of what it means to be a professional hockey league coach, and I learned a lot there. Rob Concannon, who's the president there, has got a big influence in my career. He's the one that took a chance on me. I I was sitting in my office at Curry College, and I sent him an email because I knew there was an opening, and 10 minutes later my phone rang. And he could have easily not called me, and I probably wouldn't be here today. So he took a chance on me, 12 years ago, and here I am today. And he's done a great job with bringing, Jared Bednar and even Cal McLean, who's in Calgary, and Spencer. And it's a little fraternity we have down there that we all stay in contact, and we lean on each other. I talked to Jared just yesterday about some things through training camp that I want to pick his brain on, and it's really important for me to have those people to lean on.
Also, your experience in the American Hockey League after that really helps. You were an assistant coach for Mike Vellucci, and you guys won a Calder Cup in Charlotte, North Carolina. But then you got an opportunity to be a head coach on your own, first in Carolina, but also with the Chicago Wolves. And I wanted to reflect on that because now you're working with players that are now in the National Hockey League. I mean, on your championship team, you won the Calder Cup in 2022. You had players like Stefan Nason on the team. You had a young kid like Luke Evangelista on your first Chicago club. So you've had a variety of different types of pros, and that had to be a good experience to work with those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in that level, you have the younger players, or 18, 19 years old, that are trying to find their way, and they're top prospects. And then you have the older players that are trying to resurrect their career, in the Stefan Nasons and Josh Levos. And we have to all have that common goal to win. And if we want to have success and as a team, individual success usually comes with that. So I was a big preacher of let's play together, and that individual success will come with that. So I've enjoyed my time in the American Hockey League. It's, again, where I grew a lot as a player and as a coach and as a person, of what it takes to get the player to the next level. And the Chicago was a great spot for me and my family. Obviously, winning a championship was important, and it was a fun ride through the playoffs. And I learned a lot of those moments of adversity and getting players to buy into the common goal of winning a championship. It was a lot of fun that year. And
all of that comes to fruition here in the National Hockey League as your opportunity to become a head coach. You'll turn 37 in late October when the season starts. You've been described as someone who drags people into the fight as a head coach. One of your former players told me that. He said, Ryan Warsofsky drags everybody into the fight. Would that describe what you have to do here?
Yeah, I would say so. I think I'm a motivator. I'm going to be right in there with the guys. I'm going to have their backs. We're going to be in this together. I'm no bigger than the 25th guy in the roster or the equipment manager and Mike Yell. I'm no bigger than anyone on this team, and no one else is going to be any bigger. We're going to be in this together. We got to be pulling the rope the same way. It doesn't mean I'm not going to push and challenge and pry players to be their best every single night. I expect a lot and I demand a lot. But I also understand there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's social media. There's going to be outside influences and things happen. There's, the social media, the anxiety of coming and playing in the National Hockey League. There's a lot of pressure through family and agents and friends. So I understand that there's a human element to it. But if we're all in this together and we all have each other's backs, I think magical things can happen. If everyone's believing, we can do some special things here. And it's not going to happen overnight. We got to take this thing, and you're going to hear me say it a lot. We're going to focus on one day, and we're going to try to get better that day. If it's a practice, if it's a video session, if it's a game, we're going to focus on that day to get better and to continue to have this process of where we want to get to at some point in this organization's future.
What's your theory about running practices? Because again, I've been told that you have a very organized method when you're a head coach of making sure that you're working on specific items each and every day.
Yeah, we're going to be prepared. We're going to be organized. We're not going to be throwing darts at the board and trying to patch holes. I know what it looks like. Our staff is going to know what it's going to look like. We'll be prepared in our practice and our process. I think that's important to me. So, everyone learns differently. Every generation learns differently. I learn differently than maybe you learned it. So I have to understand what makes each guy tick. But I think if we continue to hammer out, what we want it to look like, whether that's in our video sessions through our practice, now it becomes a habit. And now it becomes, that practice habit becomes a game reality. And now we start seeing some progress. So I'm excited to get started and get planning for training camp. And, talking to some of the staff, we're excited to kind of get that plan prepared.
Part of that is knowing the differences between the guys that are on your roster. And we know that the San Jose Sharks roster is going to change a little bit. It does each and every year. But you've coached veterans like Erik Karlsson. You're working with the defense, and you were there when he scored over 100 points. And then you're also working with a young guy like Henry Thrun. What's the difference between that? What's the balance that you have to forge, and how do you do it?
Yeah, I think trust, right? Trust is important in any coach. And football, basketball, we're going to put the guys out there that we trust the most. And the players will understand that. They'll understand exactly where they stand with me, what their role is. And that was the same with Erik and Henry. Erik knew his role was on the first power play. He had a little bit more leash than probably a Henry Thrun that's coming up and trying to learn the professional game of the National Hockey League. So it's a little bit understanding what who the human is, really. I'll learn about the hockey player second. I'll find out what the person's all about, how they're, what they buy into, how they're taught, how they learn, all those different circumstances that come out throughout the season that will continue to form that relationship. But it starts, today and going forward and reaching out. And, a lot of these players I already know, which really helps me a lot.
Right. They already know you. They understand how you work. But your role is going to be a little bit different as the head coach of the hockey team. And one thing that's interesting about your history is you've actually been an assistant coach of a team and then become the head coach of that same team. What's that adjustment like? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's an adjustment. There's no question about it. There's a process to it that I'll get more comfortable as the days go on. But our players that are coming back know me and what I'm all about. They've seen me run a meeting. They've seen me around the locker room. Not much is going to change in that facet. I think I'm the same person. If I start changing who I am, they're going to see that right through me. So I am who I am. They'll understand that. I'll be probably a little bit more demanding at times, and probably a little bit more black and white, and want a little bit more out of them in certain situations or whatnot. But I'm going to be Ryan Warsofsky. That's who I am. I can't change who I am.
One thing you're going to also do is depend on your assistant coaching staff and your trainers and your equipment managers to make sure that everything runs smoothly, and every once in a while chat with the broadcasters. But tell us about your staff and how you might like to make it up. Have you made decisions about that yet?
Yeah, we're still working through that process, today and tomorrow and these next few days, and we'll hopefully get that situated here soon. I think every staff I've been on has been really tight and really close. There's been a respect factor where I want to be challenged. I want ideas to be thrown at me, but at the same time we need to be respectful of that. We all think differently. We all coach a little bit differently. It doesn't matter whether you've been a head coach or an assistant coach, whether you've experienced or not experienced. But we need to be a tight knit group, and we got to let the players know that we're tight as a staff, because they see that, and we want them to see that. Wow, this staff is really tight. We want to be tight, and now all of a sudden we have one big tight group, and that's what it needs to be.
How excited are you about the prospect of the Sharks having the #1 overall pick and having the 14th overall pick in this draft?
Yeah, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel, as I would say. There's some hope now. Obviously, Will Smith has signed. Zetterlund had a great year. Eklund had a good year. Henry Thrun is progressing and had really, I thought his second half was better. And he had some lumps, but he's learning. And now we have these two top 15 picks, and 2 picks in the top 15 is really exciting. The #1 overall pick, and which we all know who that's going to be most likely. So we're excited, and I'm super excited to work with these younger players in the Will Smith and help them go through the process of becoming a National Hockey Leaguer.
You're not only a head coach, you're also a father, and you have 2 young kids, a lovely wife. Tell us about your family and how this change is going to affect them.
Yeah, it's going to be. I don't think my kids really understand what's going on a little bit. My oldest, my son Cal, he's starting to figure it out. With, we're back out here. He's kind of questioning it, but we're excited. My wife is obviously the rock of our family. I'm not going to be around a lot, and they've seen that a little bit. Not much will change with that, but it's hard on your families to, gone for 2 weeks, come home, you play the next day. There's a lot of grind that goes with it, and if it's not for my wife, I'm not here today. And she was with me since day one in a Division III freezing cold rink. So she's been, all the way up the ladder with me and just by my side. So I'm very, very fortunate to have such a great wife and support system through my 3 brothers, my parents, and then my kids. That's my why, right? So we all have that carrot that we love, and I love winning, and I love preparing, and I love challenging players to be their best. But at the end of the day, my why is my kids and seeing their dad do something special.
As we wrap things up, tell us about what message you have for the Sharks fan base that you're going to be coaching in front of here.
Yeah, I think, like I said, there's hope now. We have that light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're going to be an exciting team to watch. I really do. I think we're going to be up and down. We're going to make it difficult on teams to play against us. We're going to make it so when teams leave this building, they say, damn, is that a hard team to play against? That's all I can say. I can't sit there and guarantee you how many wins we're going to have. We're going to win a Stanley Cup, when it's going to be, but our goal is to one day win a Stanley Cup, get this team back in the playoffs so this place is rocking again.
Congratulations. We're excited to have you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.